Hi there, welcome to another long-form commission video where I'm going to be working on a awesome character that somebody has commissioned me to draw. In this case, it's a D&D character that somebody has sent me. And you get to sit back and watch my process and chill, maybe pull out a nice cup of tea or coffee, and sit back and maybe sketch along with me for this first video, which is going to be the penciling video. Where I'm going to take this drawing here and take it to completion, hopefully in the pencil stage. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right. So I have actually held back quite a bit for this drawing, and I say that because normally, let me adjust my mic a little bit here. Let me test something real quick. Okay, that's not too bad. I've got a new camera set up and I'm trying not to impede where one camera is over the other. But yeah, what I have here is hopefully a nicer way of showing off my face and the artwork at the same time. I haven't really disliked how it's been filmed before, but I feel like this gives me more freedom over here. Where my tools and such are, so that I don't have to worry about bumping the tripod if it's to my right. So, like I said, I've held back on this drawing here because usually when I sketch, I get very much into the pencils, and I wind up shading a lot more than what I intend, so by the time we get to the actual recording, there's like pretty much a finished line work, and I just go over and I shade it. So I tried to hold back more for this one to show you a little bit more of my process, but I also don't want to keep you here for absolute ever. So this is, in case you couldn't tell, a Dragonborn monk, and her name is Karaasha. Hold on. It's Karaasha. I've got her information pulled up that the commissioner, who I don't think I'm allowed to share her name. I'm not sure on that, so I just won't. But yeah, this is a character that was designed by a good friend of mine. And she is a Kensei monk, I believe. And this is a character I think that they haven't gotten to play yet. So hopefully this character will find a campaign soon. But in the meantime, we're going to try to bring her to life in the form of this artwork. So right now I'm working on the hand and trying to give like that scaly look to the fist and the bracer here, while also drawing this tonfa. And the deal with like drawing kind of these martial arts weapons is, or at least something that's like crossed my mind and kind of given me a little bit of apprehension, was like, there's gonna be somebody out there who's done martial arts and gonna be like, she's holding the tonfa wrong. To which I say, yeah, but it looks cool. Sometimes you can't be 100% accurate in your drawings, and that's completely fine. There's only so much that you can do. It is important to research stuff, but at the same time, aesthetics, I think, are at the end really what you're going for. So if you get to something and maybe it's a little inaccurate, as long as it's not misrepresenting something completely and totally, usually it's okay to just kind of stick with the aesthetics over realism. Like, nobody's gonna go and look at like the Batmobile and say, oh, that would never physically work or whatever, blah blah blah. Because, you know, maybe it doesn't, but you know, it still is an iconic piece of Batman storytelling, so it's always going to be in a Batman comic in one shape, form, or the other, whether it's realistic or if it's not. this outfit is something that was kind of interesting to design because I had asked for some reference images and such, and my good friend sent me all of the references they had, which was all a complete Pinterest board, which I love getting from my clients. If they've got a Pinterest board or a mood board of the character to go along with their ideas, it just makes my job that much easier, because then I have like a great idea of what they're thinking visually and not just like what I'm, you know, not just what I'm thinking. But yeah, and in that was like a lot of the kind of style of clothing that they were thinking of, and there was a lot of like, there's a mix of like almost like almost steampunk, magic punk. It's steampunk, but there's magic, and as well as like some traditional monk clothes. So I kind of tried to mix that with like this short jacket here, along with kind of like this Street Fighter looking inspired clothes. I think it turned out all right. Well, I know that the client likes it, but I'm hoping that I like it by the end of this, because a lot of times it'll start like, oh, this is fun, I like this. I'll send it to the client, they're like, yeah, and then I'll start working on it, I'm like, I don't like it anymore. And I don't know what that is. Like, I think it's just like a certain level of confidence that I kind of lose. Which is unfortunate because, you know, the hard part's over. If the client's happy, you know, you should at least be a little bit satisfied. But I don't know, I guess I'm hard to please. So I'm kind of jumping around here, trying to add some shading or some indication where I want shading for the inking stage. I'm finding I'm jumping into that stage a lot sooner nowadays, where I'm really excited to lay down where the shading will go. And I'm also a lot more like confident of like how I want it to look. But I am noticing that this is getting a little bit messy, so let me go in here and just give a little bit of erasing to these lines. Nothing too major, just gonna soften them a little bit. I can redraw anything that I want to keep. Here we go. So the biggest intimidation factor for this drawing was the fact that it's a Dragonborn. Now, I am not like a huge Dragonborn fan, in the sense of like, it's not the race that I immediately rush to when it's like, okay, it's time to create characters for RPGs. I'm not usually like, oh, I want to make a Dragonborn. And that's generally just because like I've seen a lot of like art for Dragonborn, and it's not like that it's bad. It's usually just like kind of falls into like a certain level of like, I don't know, anatomical questions where how do you handle the snout? How do you handle the neck? How do you handle, you know, the tail, which is like actually a pretty big controversy. I found out whether or not Dragonborns have tails. You'll notice this one definitely does have a tail. And I don't know, just like I've never really gotten into the aesthetic of having like a, if I'm playing, I don't want to have a kind of a, I don't know, schnout. But I think that like part of that is just like me getting tied up in aesthetics. I think that if I really thought of it, I could find a way to design one that I like. And indeed, I kind of have with this one, where I've been able to balance a good amount of the dragon details with some of the more mortal or humanoid features. I think it's like it reminds me of like the old furry art I would see back when, this is gonna date me, but back when I was on DeviantArt, which I'm not anymore. I've pretty much deleted everything that was related to that, and I had a different username, so don't even try. But when I was on there, like, there was just like a lot of, like, this was like early days of DeviantArt, so it wasn't like an absolute dumpster fire at that point, or at least was, maybe it was, I just didn't notice it. But yeah, there was a lot of like really good art, and then there was just like this absolute avalanche of furry art. And if you're a furry artist, you know, if good for you, I guess, but also, you know, why? Because there's like, I get it, anthropomorphic animals, sure. Like if you have an animal that's designed to, you know, personify something, like a Disney character or something like that, all right, sure. And then like, if you like drawing animals, okay, I get that, but why can't you draw like animals in a way that's, I don't know, appealing or realistic or following laws of anatomy? Like, I don't know, it always bothered me like how just they never, no one, it seemed to not be a thing to think of anatomy or realism when it came to furries. It was always just like big head, you know, weird, puffy body, pretty much like it was, you know, like a suit, like somebody was in it. And I guess that's just the whole point, rather than actually having some sort of anthropomorphic animal. And I don't know, because I don't understand the furry community. And I won't say like I'm a straight up furry hater, but it's not something that I'm really interested in any shape, form, or fashion. But that's kind of like what some of the Dragonborn artwork that I would see reminded me of, and I guess that's kind of why it kind of prevents me from enjoying Dragonborn. But I've been learning to get over that as I see, you know, better work. And I think that's what it is just my own personal preferences in relation to like anatomy and accuracy and trying to like make something look realistic. Because even like fantasy artists, like can't remember his name. I love his work, and I just took a course from him, and I can't remember what his name is. And now I feel bad. It's not Max Dunbar. I love Max Dunbar, though. Hold on, let me look this up real quickly so that my OCD is just satiated. Art bugs. I have it saved because I haven't bought it yet. It is Jesper Esching. All right. So yeah, even like Jesper Esching, or if I don't know if I'm saying that right, but even he has like a certain level of realism in his work, despite him drawing, you know, stuff for Magic the Gathering or dragons or whatever. It's like there's a certain level of like understood anatomy and form and such like that, and that just it seemed like in the furry community they were never interested about actually improving their artwork, and I think that's the biggest problem I have, other than like, well, again, I'm not going to get into it. I've talked too much about it, but yeah, anyway, so Dragonborn, tails or no tails. I never understood why you wouldn't have a tail as a Dragonborn. And I think the idea, and I might be wrong about this argument, but the way I understood it is essentially Wizards of the Coast essentially said Dragonborn don't have tails. And some people are like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And other people are like, that doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't they have tails? So it's like pretty much just like I guess, like the conformist versus the non-conformist, or something like that. I don't really understand it because I haven't really looked it up thoroughly. I just saw, like, when I looked up do DragonBorn have tails, there's this massive, like, fire on the internet where they're like, yes they do, no they don't, no. And I was like, okay, I'll just do what I think is cool. And personally, like, I love the idea of Karaasha here having an extra appendage to help her balance with, like, these kind of kicks and such. And I really don't see why she wouldn't have a tail. So I gave her a tail. And if that doesn't suit your fancy, well, I'm sorry. But that's also what the my client wanted, so. If you got a problem, you can take it up with my client. And I'm sure she will not care or respond. So, one of the specifications is this is a gem dragon, and I don't really know how I want to handle the gems. My thinking is just kind of like these basic geometric shapes, kind of poking out here and there. So, like, with the jacket, I have, like, this kind of, like, a shoulderless situation here. And then I'm going to have the gems kind of poking out, like so. So almost like she's got one of those punk jackets. But instead of spikes, it's these crystallized, crystalline shapes, which I think is really cool. If I can get it right, it'll be really cool. If I can't, I think it'll look stupid. This is one of those where it's like, I'm like 50-50 on it. Like, I'm not sure if I'm like convinced I like it yet. So like right now that's probably why I'm bouncing around so much on this. Like I was down here, now I'm up here. It's because I'm just kind of almost nervous and trying to figure out like what I can do to really make this pop and really make this sing. Because I really want this character to look cool for my client, but then I also want her to look cool just because, like, I want every character I draw to seem interesting at the very least. So here I'm just kind of like roughing in some like rough spikes here, and I think what I'll have is there'll be like a seam here in her outfit. It's almost like a gi that she's wearing here. Let me see. Do I have a sketch of what that is? I do. I just have to hide these other sketches that are spoilers for other projects. Alright. So this is the original sketch. And yeah, I've kind of got like not a zipper, but kind of a seam coming down. So let me just sketch that in so I remember it. Messy in here, so I'm going to go ahead. Again, it's completely fine to erase in this step because that's what this step is for. It's for figuring out where your ink is going to be finalized. The pencil is not final. It's all about the ink work. Unless, of course, the commissioner orders a pencil only commission, in which case I can get a little more refined with my pencils. So it's going to wrap around the body here like this. Shading is consistent. And then we're gonna have our collar. for this kind of like a Street Fighter inspired outfit. I basically looked up Street Fighter characters that looked kind of similar in body type to what I wanted to draw, because I got a couple of poses from the commissioner, and I really liked what they sent me, but I wanted something, because a lot of the poses that they sent were just sketches from other artists on Pinterest, or like pose templates, and I don't really like to use those. I like to look at actual human bodies to help me figure out how to plot out stuff, even if it's a Dragonborn. I think it's good to have that reference and that knowledge of anatomy, even if you're going to warp it or change it. It's a good thing to know and to keep in mind. But I looked up Street Fighter as well, just for an idea of the kind of body type I was looking at, and I found Cammy from Street Fighter 6. And I really like how they did her design. I don't really know much about her or about Street Fighter at all. I played the demo for 6, and like it was fun, but I don't really remember much else about it because I'm terrible at fighting games. So like I kind of lost interest after a while, just because like, you know, I mean, there's only so much I can do before I'm like, I don't remember any of the combos or the buttons or anything. So, yeah. But I was looking at like how essentially how she moves and how she poses, and kind of incorporated that into the design that I have here. And I kind of like that. I like how her influence has kind of steered the direction of this piece. I want to keep in mind kind of the gem shape, that kind of geometric look, and try to use that as I draw the scales on the head or the spine scales here, whatever, so that I have a good idea of or a good representation of that idea of this is a gem dragon or a crystal dragon or something like that. I'm pretty sure it's gem. One of the things I wanted to do was have like these kind of gems coming up her spine, almost like Godzilla, because to me that just sounds like awesome. Like if she's got like this like draconic kind of feature in the back that matches with her tail and stuff. I thought that was a cool idea, and so I'm glad that it got approved. Because that's the thing, like with client work, I can come up with as many cool ideas as I want, but it does come down to like what the client wants, and if I'm not, you know, matching what their vision is, sometimes I have to, you know, let them be the right ones. Like you can't be right 100% of the time, especially like if you're working in a collaboration. You have to let, you know, whoever you're working with, even if they're not the artistic one, which, I mean, my client is artistic, but if your client isn't, you still want to respect them and their wishes, because at the end of the day, they are the ones that are paying you. And you want to keep that in mind, is that they are the customer, and, you know, the customer's always right in matters of taste. So they know what they want, and maybe that's not exactly what you would maybe prefer or you would call a good call. But at the end of the day, like, I would try to find a tactful way of suggesting maybe what you would think is a good idea. But then if that's not what they want to do, that's not what they want to do. And it's a tough road to walk if you're not used to that, and it takes a little while to get used to. But if you can figure it out, working for, you know, commissions and working with clients can be very satisfying and very fun. But my client right now is very, very chill. So often I will find that things will go very, very smoothly for a while, and then I will get like a message about something like very, very randomly specific. So like the way that the tale is, it's like there was a specific way that she wanted the tale to end, and my immediate like temptation is to just like immediately be like, well, that's not how I would do it, blah blah blah, you know, how dare you tell me how to draw a character. But you know, she's the client, so I'm like, okay, it's just as easy as that. This is starting to kind of get epic. Like the geometric shapes are really starting to get me excited. I don't know. Alright, this is the tough part. Getting the mouth to look well enough defined without looking stupid. Again, like I don't like how most Dragonborns look. And that's just, again, that's a style preference, but I tell you who I do like whenever they draw Dragonborns. Like the art from Max Dunbar is some of my favorite. I like it so much. He's recently to me, if you're watching this when I post it, it's probably very much in the past now, but I don't know, maybe not. But he has recently released his art book, and on Zune, some sort of publishing thing, and it looks fantastic. And I have just like hours ago ordered my copy, like first day early bird bonus, because I love seeing his work, and I love, you know, referencing how he does textures and character designs, and just in general just fantasy illustrations that are just absolutely beautiful and really well done. So he's like, I think the book is all gonna be 100% like in black and white with a few exceptions, and that's just like perfect, because then it really does get to show off his abilities in my mind. And it also is like a great reference book, I feel like, so I can pick that up and I can look at how he does dragons and how he does, you know, dwarves or whatever, while I'm working on other fantasy projects. Because I've got a lot of like reference books and artists that I like in sci-fi, because sci-fi was like my jam for the longest time, and it still is. It's just like I've done a lot with sci-fi. But I'm really excited to have like a fantasy art book that's just an art book of fantasy. It doesn't have like any other, you know, work in it for like, you know, like a game book or like a movie art book, which I love having those. I think those are great too. But I do like me some good old-fashioned, just open it up and find a nice page to look at. So Karaasha here is a monk, and from what I understand, she's kind of a monk that has stayed, like, she's not really like hiding herself from the world or anything like that. She's stayed current with the times, but she still, you know, respects the old ways. And at the end of the day, she is a fighter, and she is a defender, and she protects her friends. From what I understand, she is kind of the mom of the group. Like, she's the one that like they go to because she has like higher wisdom than everybody else, and she's also very understanding. And so I kind of wanted to give her like that kind of defensive pose, and that almost kind of I don't know, like most monks, when you like draw like kung fu, it's like, oh, they're a loner or whatever, and they are, you know, they do whatever on their own. And like, I wanted to kind of give her more of a look like she belongs with certain people, or at least could belong in a group, rather than being like maybe in a hunched over kind of kung fu pose. Like, she's like kind of turning and spinning as if like maybe she was looking for, you know, the next person that she can strike, or defending one of her comrades. And I kind of like that idea. I like having like a character that is kind of multi-layered and multifaceted. So yeah, this is a character that could probably kick your butt, but also a character that, like, you know, maybe you would go talk to about stuff. So trying to convey that idea is kind of difficult to do all in one, because you also want to make it epic as possible. But I really like how this one's starting to come out. Like, it's starting to, again, like it's kind of growing on me. And I don't know, you know, what it is, if it's just like the fact that the penciling's turning out quite nicely, or if it's the pose, or if I've finally started to like kind of warm up to the idea of drawing dragon characters. I don't know. And I want to make it clear, I've got nothing wrong with drawing anthropomorphic characters. Like the first, you can look it up, the pages in the Witchborn comic. I've been drawing frog characters as a part of my, as a part of the main cast for the first chapter. And, you know, that's something that I chose to do. It's not something I you know, had to do, but it's something that I wanted to do, to give it, you know, the world that kind of sense of whimsy. But generally speaking, it's not something that I immediately think of as far as like if I want to draw a hero character, I don't immediately pull out, you know, I'm going to draw a fishman or a dragon character, or, you know, whatever. I usually think more along the lines of something humanoid or something close to human. And I think that just goes back to, like, I'm not used to drawing animals in general. So most artists go through a couple of phases. So it kind of depends on, like, who you are and how you grew up and such. I know some people, like, that draw cartoons and comics and stuff like that are more animated. Usually, like, their background is they watched a lot of, you know, Cartoon Network, or they watched a lot of cartoons that maybe I didn't see. And so, like, when I look at their artwork, it's foreign to me, because it's like, I'm like, why would you think of that shape for, you know, that thing? Like, it works, it's just I'm not familiar with the process. Some people, like, they grew up and they liked animated shows and comics and such like that were maybe more realistic, or maybe you know, manga or anime was their big inspiration. And so a lot of that, you know, kind of gets translated. But one of the things that I've noticed is pretty much everybody goes through the phase where you're drawing eyes, and then you're drawing either animals or characters. And some people do both, but what I've noticed is it's usually one or the other. Is you're going to be drawing, like, you know, like if you're a horse girl, you're going to draw horses. If you're, like, into dogs, you're going to draw dogs or whatever. Or if you're furry, you're going to draw abominations. I'm kind of kidding. I don't... Again, I'm not a furry. And I'm sorry if you are, but, you know, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that you're wrong. But, so for me, I was definitely more of one of those people that drew characters. And not like I had like that phase where I was trying to draw everything realistically, but as I like learned more about like styles, especially in comics and manga, I started to kind of develop my own and really be obsessed with like learning how to stylize characters, specifically towards like more realism, because I always thought that those comics and manga were like better than the ones that like were maybe a little more exaggerated. So like I wasn't really into like stuff like Dragon Ball Z or even One Piece, which I feel like those are still like valid and cool. Like, I mean, don't like hang me from a tree. I think those artists are very good at what they do. It's just not what I was really into at the time, as far as my studies went. And so, you know, a lot of my artwork kind of leaned towards humans and how anatomy worked and such like that. And so I got very good at that. And then I just never really got to that animal drawing phase, because usually at some point, like, you draw animals. Like, either you get like commissioned to draw your grandma's dog, or like, you know, you have a drawing class in school or something like that, and you got to draw an animal because, you know, they usually don't teach you anatomy in school, as in art class at least. And that never happened to me because it just didn't happen. Like, I never got into, hey, let's draw a dog or an animal or whatever. I think I actually did get commissioned to draw somebody's dog. But like, that was like once, and I remember like really struggling with it. But yeah, no, mostly I was drawing characters and trying to get better at that. So when it comes now to drawing anything that resembles an animal, like even if it's, you know, like a Dragonborn like this, or like a frog person or something like that, usually I struggle. Actually, I don't struggle with frogs. Here's why I don't struggle with frogs. And if you were in my class a few years back, my drawing class, you know what you did. So I had a drawing class, and every single class, to get them to draw, just because they were a wily bunch, they weren't paying attention, every single class period, I would say, hey, we're gonna draw something that you all want to draw at the end, so let's get through this lesson. And so what that meant was, after every single lesson, they all united because they wanted to draw frogs. And I, to this day, have no idea why. But that's what they wanted to draw. And it was like, okay, so I would have to pull up an image of a frog, usually a tree frog or something with like, that was interesting or hard enough to draw so that like, if I messed up, it looked like at least I kind of, you know, had an excuse. And I drew frogs for something like 12 weeks with these kids, and they loved it. And eventually I learned how to love it. But yeah, that's how I can draw frogs, but like nothing else in the animal kingdom. There are times I miss that class, I won't lie, but that's just like, it's still a mystery as to like why frogs. That kind of looks like a chicken foot. I don't know if I like that or not. I think I need to be more lizardy. What would be a good, like, alternative? I've got like a... Hold on. I'm gonna go get a thing. Okay, I got the thing. So this is a dragon miniature that I 3D printed, and I'm going to paint pretty soon for a kind of campaign that I'm running. Not kind of, it's a campaign that I'm running. And this is supposed to be Cryovane for the Dragon of Icespire Peak. And if you're one of my players watching this, don't look at it. Spoilers. Yeah, the Dragon of Icespire Peak has a dragon in it. Whoa. But yeah, you can see I'm gonna kind of look at these claws and see if I can't get like a better idea of like what would look good here rather than my chicken feet. So I'm going to set this guy over here if I can, and try not to knock him over anything. So the first thing I'm realizing is like he's got like kind of these like more armored scales that are like pointing down rather than up. So kind of like that. And that's like the front, so that's kind of... Ow! He's got so many tiny little spikes that's poking me. Yeah, I love miniatures. I don't like buying them. I like printing them. Because then I have like a lot more freedom of, you know, if I want to change the scale or if I want to maybe paint it differently. If I'm, you know, I mean, you can buy like unpainted miniatures, I guess, but like, I guess I'm just kind of picky because I think it's sort of cheaper to print it on your own, I guess. It's not really, probably by the end, by the amount of miniatures I've been printing. I'm really excited for that campaign. I hope it goes well. Alright. Yeah, that looks a little better. I just looked at the face and realized, like, it looks a lot better than I thought it would. And I'm really happy about that, but I'm going to add this pupil here. Just to give it a little bit more life. I like that. I like that a lot. I'm starting to actually really enjoy this piece. I really thought this was going to be one of those ones where I was like, well, I tried, but it's actually coming together quite nicely. Like, I love how the pose is looking. It's just nice. All right. I'll fix that in a minute. I need to worry about the feet for right now. So the way they have it is kind of like muscle comes down like this. And then like it splits off there, but I'm gonna put like a humanoid kind of ankle here to try to... I should have roughed this out. That's okay. I'll figure it out here on camera. Will come out. It's going to be kind of like in a fan motion, so I'm going to line that up and kind of roughen what I think will work. And I'm using this dragon like as a very basic, like very, very rough reference. It's not something that like I'm basing completely on. Like, I'm obviously changing things here and there from where I think things should go, or how I want things to be, because at the end of the day it's my drawing and I can do what I want with it. But I'm also like taking, you know, inspiration definitely from like how some of these shapes are, because I do like this piece. This piece, I like this piece too, but this piece is awesome. Not this piece, this piece, you know, the one with the dragon. Not this dragon, that dragon. Here's something I wonder. If you're a Dragonborn or a lizard folk, do you, and like you've got like kind of claws on like your feet here, would you have to go like get those manicured at all, or are those just kind of like self-sharpening? The other thing I wonder is like, is there footwear even for that? Because that's the thing, like if you think about it, like in a society where like these things exist, eventually like maybe somebody develops footwear for it. Kind of like how I saw somebody demonstrate how it's like, yeah, you should have accessories and fashion for these other fantasy creatures that you create in your world. So like they had come up with tail bags, which tail bag is essentially just like if you had a tail here, you would, you know, put a pouch or something back there. And I thought that was like the coolest thing ever to think of. Also, like tails bags would be awesome. Let me stick Cryovane over here. All right. So yeah, it's a good idea to think through your fantasy world and your fantasy fashion design, really. And it goes for sci-fi too, because it's like you're not going to see an alien with 3 arms walking around with a normal t-shirt. Like, think about how maybe they would design clothing differently than how humans would. Because humans, you know, we designed clothes based on, you know, what was, you know, necessary, and then built fashion around that. So if, you know, you're dealing with an alien race who has never seen humans before, you know, needs to have fashion that is based around its needs, then it's going to look completely different. So you kind of want to step into that headspace of how they would come up with, you know, solve those problems. I really wish I was better at wrinkles in clothing. That's something that I need to get better at. And by get better at, I mean complain until I actually sit down and do another study on it for a couple of weeks. Because that's how you actually improve. It's just, you know, not doing anything about it and then complaining. That's how things get done. I'm gonna tell you what, boy. That's how I learned everything that my daddy learned me. I just complained about it. Works every time, I tell you what. Can do this. I just need to get over the fact that I think it's difficult or too difficult for me. Because it might be difficult. But you know what? I do all kinds of difficult things all day long. This shall be no different from doing the laundry or paying my bills. Sure, it might be painful, maybe even a little annoying, but at the end of the day, I'll be glad I did it and did it right. Except for I'll be a lot more happy that I did this than paying my bills or doing my laundry. Well, yeah. Okay. I'll be pretty happy when I have clean clothes and the lights are still on, but this is looking a lot more crunchy than I thought it would be. I thought it was just going to be like a very simple drawing, but now that I'm adding the textures and stuff, I can see like it's going to get like a lot more crunchy with the details and such. I'm always having to like pep talk my way through this. Again, when I was looking at the commission lineup, this was the one where I was like, oh man, I don't know. Like most of them I felt pretty confident, and now that I'm getting to this one, I'm like seeing that there really wasn't that much to worry about. I just need to get over it and remember like basic shapes for stuff. Because that's the thing, you don't need to know maybe dragon anatomy, just like what you think a dragon might look like in basic shapes. And then draw some basic, you know, textures over top of it. It's like, I don't really know what a gem dragon looks like, but I do know kind of what gems look like in the sense that they're basically just, you know, fancy rectangles. So I'll just draw a bunch of fancy rectangles and triangles and stuff, and all will be well. That's essentially like, if you just think through shapes and you think through textures. Well, shapes first, obviously. You can draw just about anything. I wonder if it'd be better if I did this. I think I like it better if it's like bigger scales, because otherwise it'll look like a lizard. That's another thing that I ran into. Like, drawing a dragon person versus drawing a lizard person is so difficult. Like, there's certain things that lizard people have that dragons don't have, and dragon people have that lizard people don't have, and I think maybe that might be why some people are for tails and why some people are against them, to like show off the difference. But I feel like you can do a lot more than just having tails to define the differences between your dragon folk and your lizard folk. That's my political opinion on that argument. It's more than just tails. I think you can add different sizes to your scales versus your kind of plates that dragons might have versus what lizards might have. You can also look at like the heads and maybe add a little bit more of like your rounded textures for your lizards and then more sharp textures for your dragons. So there you go. There's my free advice. Everything I know about drawing anatomy for dragons and lizard folk, of which I have drawn a total of not a lot. I think this is probably the first DragonBorn I've sat down and really illustrated. Trying to decide where I want these spikes to end, because I don't think I'll have them go all the way around. Otherwise it'll look like the alien xenomorph tail. What I will do though is I'll finish actually drawing the tail in a normal pencil. Some of you might not know this, but the blue pencil is there basically for my very, very basic shapes and my initial drawings, so that when I go to scan this in, the printer light will actually not scan the blue pencil. So it's something with basically the tone of the pencil versus the light that emits from the printer. Essentially, it will not show up, and then I can essentially be free to draw whatever anatomy I need, draw whatever shapes I need to help me work. And then I don't have to be afraid that that might show up later in the final piece, or I won't have to edit that when I go to do color or anything else. trying to arrange these scales so that they actually make sense. So I have to figure it out when I've got a wet brush or pen in my hand. Almost done here. And I'm really, really excited about this piece. I don't know, I've probably said that a million times now and you're tired of hearing it, but I am. I'm really happy to see this one come together. I'm trying to get rid of some of this extra pencil I've got around here. I'm smudging pretty hard with my hands. I don't know, I think this tail might be a little long, but I kind of like it as it is for right now, and I guess if worse comes to worse I can shorten it in Photoshop. But I do think it kind of gives like a nice compositional element, even if it's not like, you know, doesn't make sense maybe anatomy wise, because like if this tail was to like lay flat it'd be probably way bigger than Karaasha, but you know, I think it's, personally I think it's a cool element, so I'm gonna leave it. And if I, you know, change my mind later, I'll just erase it, either digitally or physically. So I remember seeing a map somewhere, and it was just basically statistics of like what kind of players there were in the world of TTRPGs, specifically Dungeons and Dragons, and what kind of races that they played by region. And it was really interesting to see like that, or I guess it was classes. I know I saw one for races. I don't think it was a map though. I think it was just like a reported amount of players and like who played what. I remember Ranger being like the lowest when I looked it up on the classes. I don't remember. I want to say Gnome was probably the lowest, which is crazy to me because like, I don't know, like I feel like they're a lot more well known than maybe like not for the right reasons, because people will think of like garden gnomes or something. Maybe that's the idea and that's the stigma. I don't know. All I know is like I was prepping for Nomengard, one of the adventures in Dragon of Icespire Peak, and when I was doing that, I was like, oh, I'll just grab some gnome minis. That's not a big deal. And I went to look for some in my collection, and I was like, I didn't have really any, and I was like, well, that's odd, but okay, whatever. Not a big deal. I'll just look at the, you know, other collections that I've got elsewhere. And there's none in there, and then I looked in, like, all the stores and all of that, you know, digitally, and there was nothing there, and then I looked for the official ones and in the brick and mortar stores, and they didn't really have a great option. I was like, what is the deal? What's up with gnomes? Is just like nobody like them? Does nobody care? Okay, I'm sorry. That one was painful. But yeah, I don't know what the deal is with gnomes. If nobody likes to play them, or if they're just like not a popular race, so they don't have like a lot of like benefits. I don't know. To be fair, like I've never played a gnome, so I have no idea. Like I'm not saying I'm any better than anybody else as far as that's concerned. But yeah, I don't know. There's gnome love. I'll stop. Or will I? There we go. I think that's okay as far as that hand goes. Our shadows are a little lacking here. It's not looking too bad. We're kind of getting close to done here. Kind of want to redefine some of these scales down here. I feel like they could do a little better. I don't want them all to be the same shape exactly. So I'm fine with letting my pencil kind of do its own thing, but I'm also going to kind of fade them out. There we go, and add a little bit of shading. These top ones. There we go. Alright. So I think the big takeaway from this drawing is that even if it's something that you're not familiar with, even if you're not maybe what you would consider a pro at drawing a background or an object or a certain style of characters, go ahead and try it out, because you will not be a pro after one drawing, but you might find it's a little easier than you thought if you follow like the fundamentals. So like if you're just thinking of shapes, thinking of the feeling of how you want this drawing to look, you'll find that it's a lot easier than maybe what you initially thought. And you might not find your new favorite thing to draw. You might stick with characters or animals or whatever is your main, comfort zone. But it's always good to step out of your comfort zone and to find new ways and new things to create. That's been something I've been challenging myself with recently. Recently I've been doing a lot of painting to determine how I want to color the Witchborn webcomic, and I've been experimenting with paint mediums that I haven't done in a really long time, like acrylic. And I would have told you I hated acrylic, but recently I tried it again, and it turns out it was a lot easier now that I've had more paint time and now that I have more understanding of how colors work. And that's something that I would encourage you to try, you know. Go back to something that you haven't maybe had great success with, or something that you've been scared to do, and give it another shot. Because maybe now you're not a master at it, maybe it's not even your favorite thing now, but maybe you're just a little bit better, and it's a little bit easier for you, and it's becoming less of a I can't thing, and more of a I'm not that great at it, but I can see myself doing it. And you know, that's really important as an artist, to find those barriers that you have, you know, that are really only set up because, you know, you feel like that's, you know, you haven't earned the right to be good at something, or you don't feel like maybe you'll ever be good at that thing. But find those barriers and break them down, and work through those things, because it's not like somebody's going to come in and say, oh well, you know, you're not as good at acrylic as you know, Jesper Esching, so you can't use acrylic. Or, oh, you're not as good at, you know, drawing characters as you are landscapes, you should only be a landscape artist. No, take your time and learn. Because yeah, maybe you're not a landscape artist, but maybe you can learn something that you can use as a character artist from landscape painting. Or maybe you can enjoy just the idea and the exploration that landscape, you know, painting brings you. Or maybe, you know, if you're trying some new medium or some new process. Either way, learning and experimenting and trying new things is always going to be, you know, something that you can have fun with and something that will expand your horizons. So I always, you know, encourage that, and I've been trying to apply that in my own life, and you know, this is kind of the result of that. Working on a character and a style that, or working on a character and a type of design that I'm not familiar with, but finding that I kind of like the results. So, yeah, there you go. Just fine-tuning a few more details here. That's looking really, really well done. I'm excited for this, and I hope that you are too, because I think I'm going to call this one good for now, and we're going to keep working on this in the next video, where we will be inking this piece, and then later on in another video where we will be coloring this piece. This is very exciting to see come together. I'm actually very impressed with myself and with the design that I and the client came up with. So I hope that you stick around for the next video. I hope that you enjoyed this one and got to chill out with me a little bit, drawing and designing and, you know, just chatting about random things. So I hope to see you in the next video, but until then, go make something awesome.